So good morning. My name is Susan Lund, and I am the speaker chair for the Edina Morningside Rotary. And if you're listening online to our speaker today, we meet every Tuesday morning at the Edina Country Club from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. If you haven't been to a Rotary meeting in the past and you want to come, just come to the Edina Country Club and join us as our guest. So today is we have a fantastic speaker that I'm really excited to introduce to you. His name is Bill Neuendorf. Bill has served as the City of Edina's Economic Development Manager for 5 years. In this role, Bill works on several business-related projects. His current focus is commercial development projects and public improvements that bring value and long-term value to our community. And those of you that have driven down France Avenue, you can see all the exciting development that's going on in our community. Today, Bill is going to speak to us about the economic development update and an update on new projects. So please join me in giving Bill a warm Rotarian welcome.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to take Zdenek's position and try to avoid all the feedback that you seem to have found the sweet spot over here. Or maybe it's hanging out by Val on this table. I'm not quite sure. But let's see. Let me set this down and get this. There we go. Well, great. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. It's always good to get in front of the Rotarians. What I'm going to run through this morning is some updates on a couple of bigger projects that you've seen around the Southdale area and also the Pentagon Park project. There's been a lot happening in Edina the last several years. In fact, since the Great Recession broke in around 2011, this community has seen 52 major redevelopment projects. That's not a remodel, that's not a rehab, that's a tear it down and start over. A lot of these properties were built in the late 60s or the very early 70s. And frankly, a lot of these sites were ready. They were not the stars of Edina. But 52 projects in 6 years, as you all know, that's a lot of construction cranes. That's a lot of commotion out there. So before we look forward, let's look backwards just for a second. This photo was taken in the late 1940s. If you were standing at Snuffy's on Valley View Road and looking towards the Weston, this is what you would have seen. Roslyn Park is the lake in the middle. The future home of Southdale is in the upper left-hand corner. And it's a little bit hard to see here, but there were just the beginnings of the city of Richfield. Their single-family neighborhoods were a little bit earlier than Edina's. In the 50s, Southdale Mall came in. Here's the view looking from one of the current medical office buildings, looking to the southwest. In the background there is the illustrious France Avenue dump that had been the southern terminus of France Avenue for a couple decades. And just like today, sometimes at City Hall we hear a lot of grief, a lot of commotion amongst the neighbors, because certainly construction does have an impact to neighbors. And when they were building the single families in Richfield in the 50s, the neighboring cattle also had some concerns about changes to their neighborhood. The Southdale district today is about 8 million square feet of commercial space. So quite a difference from where we had been. A lot of the current construction and the current energy in that area really springs from a renovation and redevelopment of the Southdale Mall, of that Southdale Center. A center that for many years was in decline. This graphic shows the estimated value over several years as the mall industry dated in the 90s and 2000s. This was one of the malls that unfortunately kept getting bounced around from one portfolio to the next, and each owner conveniently did not reinvest into that property, and we saw a decline in that mall. So in 2012, the city made a stand to get involved, and we partnered with Simon Properties, who owns the mall. We took advantage of some special legislation that had passed to hopefully create some jobs coming out of the recession. and created a tax increment district to help boost that project and get it to rebound. And when it comes to the use of TIF, I just wanted to mention we have currently 7 TIF districts in Edina. I'm not going to get into all the math, although I'm happy to answer questions. But this map shows where those tax increment districts are located. This has been a tool in Edina since the early 1980s, and it's usually is pretty effective. So there certainly have been a lot of changes in the marketplace, right? I mean, there's a lot of change on France Avenue. There's a lot of change in Southdale, the general community. Before I proceed, I did want to just take a quick moment of silence to recognize the loss of a lot of big players in the retail industry over the decades. Stores like Sears, poof, gone. Pennies, a lot of those facilities. It's really been interesting though, because from the mall perspective, they're excited to get a couple acres of prosperous land back. So they're actually looking forward to rebounding from this. This image I thought was really interesting. I found this back in a document from the 70s. The green map shows original trade areas of all the dales. And so you see the 4 original dales, Southdale, Ridgedale, Brookdale, and the areas that they served. And Edina really served that whole southwestern quadrant of the Twin Cities. But in 1976, competition prevails, right? So Burnsville Center came in, Eden Prairie Center came in and grabbed part of the southern and western share. In the early 1992, Mall of America came in and also took a lot of that trade area. So that's also something that really challenged Southdale. It really no longer was the retail center that it had been in the 60s and 70s and even the early 80s. So the mall owner pivoted, realizing that they've got a great asset in their location. And I'm going to run through some of the projects that have just finished in 2018, in case you haven't seen them after they've unwrapped them with everything. Homewood Suites was finished in September. Currently under construction, JCPenney's had been. Lifetime Fitness is building their flagship fitness center for the Twin Cities. And in meeting with that group, one of the key things they mentioned to us that while Twin Cities is their hometown, until this project is built, they don't have a building that they built. Everything they've acquired or inherited as they've grown and expanded. And I should actually correct that. While they have built buildings, they don't have a flagship center. So if you go to a Lifetime Fitness in any one of their other major communities, they have facilities that we haven't seen here in the Twin Cities until this one is finished in 2019. So we're proud to have it here in Edina. It'll be a center. There'll be rooftop amenities as shown here. And there's also going to be a second building next to it that has what they call Lifetime Work, which is a co-working facility with a direct access into the gym, and also a Lifetime soccer. They have an indoor soccer training facility that's actually in this image. It's the building on the lower right-hand corner. So that'll be coming later this year. Currently wrapped in plastic, right underneath the water tower is the new home of Renovation Hardware, RH Gallery. This is a 2.5 to 3 story building, and it truly is a work of art. They design each of these for the site and really transforms what they do. Has anybody been to one of these anywhere else? There's 6 of them in the country. Kevin's been to one. They're truly amazing. When they're open, whether you need furniture or not, go check it out. It's an amazing experience. Under construction, this is the corner at 66th and York where the old Best Buy had been. Again, that property when it closed was vacant for about 4 years on a prime corner of Edina. And currently Doran Development is building a project called the Aria, which is about 190 or 180 apartment buildings or apartments that will go there with underground and indoor parking on that one. Another project that finished this year, this finished I think in August or so, Twin City Orthopedics was doing very well. Their newer building in Edina was built in I think 2010, 2009, and they outgrew it. They outgrew it twice as quickly as they thought they would, so they added more space down on Minnesota Drive, right behind the 7700 France building. I need to go there on a sunny day and take a picture. Every time we've gone out, it's been gray and cloudy the last couple months. So in the future, we'll get a better image on this one. Oftentimes, we're asked about the economics of redevelopment, because certainly when you take an old property and transform it into something that's new and state-of-the-art, after the construction crew is gone, you have a wonderful asset to use. And we'll use the new Lunds and Byerlys as an example. This project was finished in 2014 and 2015, and replaced the old the old Byerlys flagship from 1972 with a state-of-the-art Lunds and Byerlys. They realized that they had 9 acres of land, and basically a lot of it was just used for excess parking that they didn't really use. So they constructed the apartments with commercial on the first floor. So the asset is finished when it's different when it's finished, but the economics, I think, are really interesting. So the data on the left shows the old value. So when it was a grocery store only, 55,000-foot grocery store in a 9-acre site surrounded by parking, the estimated value was $5 million. When they finished with the apartments and the commercial space and the new grocery store, increased by a factor of 10 to $62 million. So that story, as we run through a lot of these projects, the numbers are not always as big as this. Certainly if it's like one of the old gas station sites that was just converted into a retail store, that these numbers are smaller, but they're dramatic. And if you look into detail of it, the proportion that goes up impacts every taxing district, whether you're the state, whether you're the schools, whether you're the city. So it's really an interesting split on how the economics turn out. So that's where we are as of January 22nd. What do we see in the future? This slide shows 3 red boxes that are currently under construction. We're expecting a few more, but on this map, let's see, I'm not sure which one this is. This one shows a lot of other that we're kind of keeping an eye on. For example, the old Macy's furniture store. Macy's has been rumored to be selling off their assets for 3 years now. I'm expecting at some point we're going to get some announcement on that one that they're going to consolidate or combine or do something. And there's a lot of properties in Southdale that are older, usually 45 to 55 years old. You notice they're not being kept up quite as nicely as they had been. Those are the ones that in the next few years we're expecting more change in this area. But we know for certain that we're expecting to see a new high-rise go up on the property that had been the Guitar Center. That has all its approvals. It's just wrapping up its financing, and it's expected to break ground this spring. And then after many years of debate and many long nights and community meetings, 2 buildings basically at 72nd and France were recently approved for redevelopment. This is the old medical office building that has some structural issues and it has been condemned. And then there's an older office building next to it that it's a nice Class C office space, but it's really not the it's not what it could be on that site. So we'd expect those properties to come down this spring as well and be replaced with 2 new state-of-the-art properties. As we've gone through all this change and redevelopment, the city convened a group called the Greater Southdale Working Group, and a few of you may have seen these slides before. But we wanted to take a more proactive stance, because certainly in the first couple years when everything started coming at us, I think the city was more reactive than proactive. And so a working group was convened that was consisting of I think 6 residents that represented various parts of the community, and 6 business people or 6 property owners that had investments in various parts of the community. After the first meeting, they realized they actually had more in common than they thought. In fact, they had more in common than they had, that they agreed on more things than they ever thought they would. And they ended up just finishing this what's called a small area plan. It was approved just last month. And these slides just show some of the things they had in mind. And number one is building on the existing assets, recognizing that the greater South area is a great place, a lot of good stuff. We're not just trying to build everything new, but build on what's the good stuff that's there. But when it changes, build it in a way that it becomes more walkable. While there's a variety of building sizes, colors, types, and everything else, make sure that it's scaled to the human experience. We decided not to have specific architectural mandates, but to be more varied and creative in the architecture. Also encouraging the mixed uses so that you can walk from one place to the next or drive as appropriate. There's definitely a desire to make sure that this area is more family friendly than it has been in the past. Green sustainability is important, to have various landscape elements. The conclusion of a place that's multi-generation and appealing to multiple cultures is also very important. We all strive to be a summer city, especially on a morning like today, but we need to recognize that we are a winter city, and we need sidewalks and snow shovels and those types of things. So that's something that they had in mind. And ultimately, what they wanted to do with the small area plan was set out a path to create this destination that we're all proud to live in, bring our family to, bring our business clients to, or host our business in. So that planning study is finally finished. I just want to take a minute to touch on Pentagon Village before we have to run this morning, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. But for many years, you've heard conversation about Pentagon Park as that property has risen and plummeted over the years. It was foreclosed on during the recession, got split up amongst 5 different lenders. A couple of the lenders went out of business, so no one really knew who had the property. A developer was able to reassemble it over the years, and the first main project that will happen on that site is under construction today, we're happy to announce. Solomon Real Estate partnered with Hillcrest Development to work on that southern parcel where that 5-story office building had been. And so you've seen some site work out there the last few months. You'll see much more this year. But this is a rendering of what that portion of the site will look like. This is a 12-acre property. They have approvals to move forward with 2 retail buildings, just smaller single-story retail. A second building that's 2 stories. It'll probably be a food operator on the first floor, and an office or a co-working space on the second floor. They've signed contracts with 2 hotels. One is a dual-branded Marriott, 5 stories, about 193 rooms. That should be breaking ground this spring. Also an extended stay hotel called Waterwalk that really caters to corporate folks that are relocated for their corporate positions. So you can rent a room for a day or a week, but you can also rent a room for 6 months if you're here on an assignment. The other 2 components here, right in the center, there's a large public plaza, about a 1-acre plaza that will also be built this year. And then there's 2 office buildings that are penciled in. These would be future phases, unless someone in this room knows someone or has a company that's looking for 155,000 square feet of Class A office space. Solomon Real Estate would love to talk with you about your need. That project, after 5 or 6 years of planning and discussion and going to the market and going through different brokers, has finally broken ground. We're really excited to see that. So in a nutshell, that's what you can expect to see in 2019. But also, I just wanted to give you the forecast that on that map, there's a lot of other properties that we know folks are they're not necessarily putting a for sale sign in the front yard. But in the next couple years, I would expect I'd have an update on what's happening with some of those other ones. So thanks for having me this morning. I'm happy to answer any other questions as well. And I'll turn it back to someone. Susan.